Welcome back to the Colors of Our History. My name is Alex. I'm a history teacher, and I created this project alongside my father, a man who spent his youth traveling the length and breadth of this country as an engineer, witnessing the golden age of America firsthand. In our last journey together, we marveled at the machines of the era, the chrome, the tail fins, the heavy steel born in the factories of Detroit. But today, we are going to step out of the cars. We are going to step onto the pavement, into the train stations, and onto the ferry decks to look at the true engine of the American century, the people. The year is 1964. We are standing on the bustling edge of New York City during the morning commute. But what you are seeing isn't just a crowd of people going to work. You are witnessing a grand daily ritual, a symphony of the middle class that played out every single morning, 5 days a week. There is a rhythm to this world. You can almost hear it. The sharp click of leather-soled shoes on concrete, the rhythmic clatter of the train tracks, the deep, resonant horn of the morning ferry echoing across the Hudson River, and above all, the crisp rustle of thousands of newspapers being folded and unfolded. This was the absolute apex of the American corporate era, the world of Madison Avenue, Wall Street, and the booming post-war economy. And to participate in this world, there was one unbreakable rule. You had to dress the part. When we look back at the early 1960s, the visual uniformity is almost shocking to the modern eye. The sea of tailored suits, the sharp ties, the polished briefcases. There were no casual Fridays back then. There were no federal laws demanding a man wear a jacket and tie to walk down the street, but there was an ironclad social contract. The suit was your armor. It was your calling card to the world. It signaled that you were a professional, a provider, a man who respected himself and the society he lived in. To leave the house without a jacket was to step out half naked. But if you look closely at the fabric of this era, you'll see a quiet revolution was already underway. The heavy, suffocating wool suits of the 1930s and 40s were giving way to the atomic age. My father used to tell me about the miracle of the 1960s wardrobe, the arrival of Dacron, rayon, and lightweight synthetic blends. These fabrics allowed a man to survive a sweltering New York summer while still maintaining a razor-sharp crease in his trousers. And then there are the hats. For decades, an American man was simply not fully dressed without a proper hat. But by 1964, the cultural tide was shifting. The classic fedora was slowly vanishing from the streets. Some historians blame President Kennedy, who famously preferred to go bareheaded. Others, including my father, will tell you that the low, sleek rooflines of modern automobiles simply made wearing a tall hat impossible. Yet, tradition dies hard. Notice the straw hats bobbing in the crowd, the classic boater hat or the Panama. There was an unspoken rule in American menswear. When the weather turned warm in May, usually around Straw Hat Day, the felt fedoras went into the closet, and the lightweight straw hats came out. It was a beautiful, gentlemanly rhythm of the seasons that has completely vanished from our modern world. And the elegance was not reserved for the men. The women of 1964 moved through the city with a grace that demanded respect. A trip into the city, whether for work or a day of shopping, was an event. It meant tailored dresses, perfectly set hair, pearl necklaces, and immaculate white gloves. It was an era where personal presentation was an art form, a daily performance of dignity. As the morning sun burns through the haze, the true lifeblood of the 1964 commute reveals itself. It's not coffee, it's ink and paper. Before the era of smartphones, before 24-hour cable news cycles, the heartbeat of the city was dictated by the printing press. Newsstands were the anchors of every street corner and train platform. Young men in aprons stood by massive, towering stacks of freshly printed broadsheets, handing them out as fast as their hands could move. This was the golden age of print journalism, but it was also the edge of a cliff. The papers these men are carrying, the New York World Telegram, the Journal American, were titans of the evening news. But what the men reading them didn't know was that this world was about to end. Just 2 years after this footage was taken, massive labor strikes and the unstoppable rise of the evening television news broadcast would bankrupt these legendary papers. They would merge, fold, and disappear forever. But right now, in the spring and summer of 1964, the news is alive. If you catch a glimpse of the headlines, you can feel the tension of the era. The Republican primary is raging, with Nelson Rockefeller blasting Barry Goldwater. On the Broadway marquees, Carol Burnett is starring in the hit musical Fade Out, Fade In. The men on the ferries are burying their faces in the sports pages, the financial columns, and the latest dispatches from a little-known conflict escalating in a place called Vietnam. They absorb the world through the smell of fresh ink and the physical turning of pages. There's something profoundly romantic about how these men traveled. For generations, the only way to get from the railroad terminals in New Jersey across the Hudson River and into Manhattan was by boat. These massive, heavy iron ferries, like the Scranton of the Erie Lackawanna Railway, were moving bridges. The ferry ride was a sacred, quiet pause in a man's day. It was 20 minutes of peace suspended over the water, a moment to stand by the wooden railings, feel the cool river breeze against your face, smoke a morning cigarette, and watch the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan emerge from the morning fog. It was the calm before the corporate storm. But just like the newspapers, and just like the Fedoras, the era of the great commuter ferry was living on borrowed time. The unstoppable march of progress, the construction of massive underwater automobile tunnels and suspension bridges, was making these beautiful boats obsolete. By the late 1960s, these specific commuter ferry lines would blow their horns for the final time, effectively erasing a historic, peaceful ritual from the New York morning. When I look at this footage with my father, we are always struck by a profound sense of innocence. The people walking these streets in 1964 have no idea what is coming. They are standing on the very precipice of the greatest cultural earthquake in American history. Within just a few short years, the entire fabric of this society will be torn apart and rewoven. The assassination of a president was still a fresh, open wound. Soon, the escalating war, the civil rights struggles, the summer of love, and the youth counterculture will sweep across the nation. The rigid, disciplined world of the gray flannel suit will be actively rejected by the next generation. The conformity you see on these sidewalks will be replaced by denim, t-shirts, long hair, and a rebellion against the very corporate system these men dedicated their lives to. The 1964 morning commute was the final, perfect snapshot of the old world. A world of incredible structure. A world where everyone seemed to be reading from the same script, walking to the same rhythm, bound by a shared understanding of what it meant to be an American professional. It was a demanding era, yes, but it was also an era of immense pride. History is not just dates and wars. History is how we dressed, how we traveled, and how we carried ourselves through the quiet moments of a Tuesday morning. My father and I are so deeply honored to be able to restore these fleeting moments of time and share them with you, to those of you who lived through this era, who remember the smell of those ferry boats, the weight of a wool suit, or the ink rubbing off a freshly printed newspaper onto your hands. We want to hear your stories. Please, share your memories in the comments below. Let us know what you miss about the America of 1964 and what you don't. Your stories are what make this channel a living, breathing archive. Thank you for walking these streets with us. From my father and myself, God bless, and we will see you in the next chapter of our history.